House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, meanwhile, is calling to investigate a report published by the Manhattan Institute. It claims Minnesota tax dollars are being sent to Somalia and ending up in the hands of a terror group. Meanwhile, President Trump writing on Truth Social, "I am, as President of the United States, hereby terminating, effective immediately, the temporary protected status for Somalis in Minnesota. Somali gangs are terrorizing the people of that great state, and billions of dollars are missing."
All right, guys, welcome to the video here. Before we get a lot more information on this, it looks like they're accusing, funds of being funneled from Minnesota. Um, the president said billions. We don't know if it's billions, but I'm sure it's a large amount of money. They're being funneled to Somali gangs, and he's stating that these gangs are terrorizing the people. So what he did was he terminated the temporary protected status for Somalians. So I'm thinking I have to do a lot more research. But this temporary protective status is, protecting Somalians from being deported back to Somalia. And I know this is going to be like a huge, probe, and they're definitely going to do a lot of crossing their T's and dotting their I's to really figure out what's going on. Because anytime you have money that's being, made or taken from taxpayers within the United States and being sent over to, fund terrorism, that's not going to fly. And, it's definitely going to bring up a red flag. And, that's why it seems like they have boots on grounds now in St. Paul, Minnesota, where they have a large community of Somalians there. So let's see what other information we can get from this story here.
Jeff Paul has the story for us live from Los Angeles. Hi, Jeff.
Hey there. Well, yeah, Congressman Emmer says if this is true, it would not only be a grave national security concern, but a slap in the face to the hardworking, law-abiding people of Minnesota. This all stems back to a single report published by urban policy magazine City Journal, which is published by conservative think tank, the Manhattan Institute. The report, citing unnamed sources, alleges funding that was supposed to go to state programs to help with housing and feeding people was being stolen. It claims some of that money was then sent to Somalia through a complex network where it eventually, according to the City Journal, ends up aiding the al-Qaeda-linked terror group al-Shabaab.
Okay, so as you just heard, they're alleging that the money that's, supposed to be for public programming, like for housing, feeding people, and all other types of programs that are for the people. That money is, some of that money or all of that money is being stolen and funneled to help the terrorist group, which is called Al-Shabaab. They're saying it's an Al-Qaeda linked group. So, they always and always will keep their eyes on any type of, terror cells, especially like Al-Qaeda. I remember hearing that name so much, in my young adult years, and there's still a faction of them that are still out there, and they're able to partner, and create other terror cells in certain countries, because they just have a disdain for the United States for one, or they just want to you just wreak havoc, really. That's typically their main goals, to wreak havoc, to take over places, to control places, to enforce their will, and just to show how powerful they are. A lot of times, they're getting like their military artillery, even vehicles from certain countries. Um, I really don't want to say too much, but it's like you know, they have ways that they are getting funded and looked out for. Um, Sometimes it's from U.S. weapons that may have been stolen or left behind in certain places, and they end up, taking those weapons and, teaching themselves how to use them, and then they use those weapons on, the citizens of these other countries, or when they go out and commit terroristic acts and stuff like that. So very, very serious thing. And with us being one of the world's superpower, the superpower, we definitely are really one of the ones that's going to front line and make sure that these type of things are weeded out and try to nip them in the bud before they create some chaos, at a mass level. So let's see what else they have to say about this situation.
Congressman Emmer, along with 3 other members of Congress, have now signed a letter addressed to Minnesota's U.S. Attorney demanding answers.
You simply can't continue doing this. It's one thing to bilk the Minnesota taxpayers. That's bad enough. But to ship the money to a terrorist organization, Al-Shabaab, I mean, any average Minnesotan should not want to put up with that at all.
Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar spoke at the state's Capitol yesterday with other state leaders. While she didn't directly mention the allegations of that report, she responded to Trump's announcement last week that he was terminating temporary protected status for Somalis in Minnesota.
There is not a single evidence that the president or his coonies have put forth that there are any.
She called them coonies. Oh man, that's too funny. She called them coonies. It's definitely a different, time and age in America because, you have, people of all types of ethnicities and stuff like that who are able to run for positions, and then they have a community now so big that they're able to get elected into positions. So, that just goes to show you the scale of, how diverse America has become. And you know, that's just it. We don't know. Like, she may be one of the people who's helping getting this money funneled out of the United States and into Somalia. We don't know. I know they did do a lot of checks into her because this isn't the first time I've seen her in the news or definitely in the spotlight um, for a lot of things. I think they were investigating her funds and just making sure that everything with her is legit. And I didn't hear anything bad come out of it. So seems like she's definitely doing what she's supposed to do, and we'll just have to see what becomes of this. But I'm gonna just let her continue with what she's saying here. I just thought her calling them cronies or whatever she just called them, that was just hilarious.
Single resource from taxpayers in Minnesota that has gone to aid and abet terrorism. That language is dangerous.
A DOJ official tells Fox News it takes fraud of any kind extremely seriously, and this referral will be thoroughly investigated. Sandra?
All right, Jeff Paul live on that out of L.A. for us. Thank you.
I want to bring in Douglas Murray, New York Post contributor. Douglas, nice to see you and good morning. 1991 is when the temporary status was granted. Somalia was a mess here to call for two. Protected status was first granted in 1991 when the country was torn apart by civil war and its national government collapsed.
As you see, the reason why there was temporary protective status, and it's been in place since 1991. I was just a little kid, and so it's more than temporary. It's more like permanent because it's 2025 now, and the reason why it was first granted was to Somalians was their country was torn apart by civil war, and their government collapsed, and in these type of countries. You hear about it all the time where there's a civil war between sides, and then they overthrow the government, and chaos ensues for the citizens who are just trying to live regular lives. And so Somalians have been able to come into the United States since 1991. So I can see how there's been a large population built up, and a lot of people have children. I'm sure the children born here, of course. And so those children are U.S. citizens. So it definitely, becomes tough um, especially when it comes to like ICE or Homeland Security coming in and trying to disrupt your normal lives that you've had since '91 really, and you never know individuals who came over here as young teens or young adults or even elders. You don't even know what ties they have back to their home country or what type of propaganda they may have been digesting and how that may have changed their mind and stuff like that. So like she was saying, it's very, very dangerous to kind of put these type of accusations out there. So they must have some type of concrete evidence, or I don't think they would, put these type of allegations out there. But I'm gonna let the video continue.
Designation has been extended many times since, many times, more than 30 plus years. The president wants to terminate these protection orders. That's where we are.
Yes, because the City Journal report says and shows that there has been massive fraud, defrauding of American taxpayers, including of things like COVID-era loans and much more, and that some people in the Somali community in Minnesota have sent money from those schemes back to Somalia, and that some of them have found their way into the hands of the al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group al-Shabaab. This is an incredibly serious report, an incredibly serious allegation. It suggests that money paid by American taxpayers could have found its way into the hands of an al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group. And in any case, even if it is simply a case of fraud in which people were sending money from American taxpayers back to their families in Somalia, is still fraud. Somalia has been in a state of civil war for decades, but there is no reason why that should be a defense for defrauding the American taxpayer. And that's what the president has said he's going to address.
And now the big question.
Okay, so he broke it down, man. Even just sending money back to their families in Somalia is considered fraud. So but we'll definitely have to see what becomes of this. I'm gonna definitely keep my eyes on it and keep my ears open to everything that's being reported and put out there, and we'll just see what happens. I'm sure there'll be an update here in a few hours. Again, if you like my content, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And again, this is Justin Paul. Peace.